Welcome to Meet the Minds, the new series where we get to know the brilliant minds that power our work and culture here at MTM. I'm here with Zoe Tan, who is a consultant on the strat team.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And I'm Philip. A lot of your work where you're operating is AI based, which is obviously the hot topic at the moment, has been for a couple of years. And I know we've spoken a little bit about how maybe the thing that's changed is public perception rather than the shift in the technology. So before we delve into all the new things AI and the nice topics that we get to do research on, perhaps it would be worth explaining your background in AI, understanding it, perhaps the experiences that you've got.
I did engineering at uni, specialized in information computer engineering in my last 2 years,
Nice.
which essentially means that I did a lot of like machine learning, learned all about like neural networks and sort of the nuts and bolts and theory behind a lot of what AI is powered by now, or like what we think about as AI. The reason I joined MTM was wanting to go back into that like tech focus. Projects I work on now are, focused on tech and developer needs within the sort of technology market and what they're looking at, which obviously right now, big AI stuff. Big on specifically generative AI. So yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot in like all of the projects, trying to implement it a little bit myself as well, both for MTM and also just like as little projects for myself to like remember how AI and ML all works and the technical side.
It definitely offers a lot to research. It offers a lot to loads of industries. But when you're dealing with new concepts or mass data or something, the prospect of having a computer that can not only process it but think about it for you is really exciting. But it's not quite there yet.
It's always so tempting to sort of anthropomorphize the idea of AI and like saying that, AI is doing a lot of the thinking, when it comes up with these like seemingly human answers. But what maybe people miss, and definitely for sure the experts will understand, and like a lot of developers too, even if they're not AI experts, will sort of get, is like it's a lot of pattern matching behind the scenes, depending on who you ask. I think this is a very maybe controversial topic of like how smart does AI need to be for us to consider it like human level smart.
AI has, as we know, is become part of the public conversation, largely due to maybe large language models and everyone shouting our product has AI in it. I know we've spoken about how AI has become more of a feature, just as a better camera might be on a phone. How do you think maybe our clients or the market's been shifting that way?
It's interesting. There's like a consumer aspect of it, and then there's also the enterprise business side of it, where at least I hope a lot of the big businesses and like businesses are in the know will understand that it's much more just another tool in your toolkit. Here are some specific ways that it can help. We can use LLMs to help us analyze, open-ended answers to survey questions. Or we're, using it to like listen to our interviews and like give us better transcripts, help us find quotes and like do the analysis more easily. But it's not like doing a lot of the thinking, and we still have to do a lot of the actual like thinking and analysis. But then on the consumer side, I don't know if you've heard of character AI, where it's essentially a platform where people have created like characters for LLMs. So you can like speak to...
It's like Meta's, they've got a similar thing where you can talk to a chef and it's got a chatbot that pretends to be a chef.
Exactly. Yeah. Like a similar concept. Okay. Those are quite fun for the consumer, but then how much of your like human interaction and like actual knowledge is being just like channeled into these AIs that doesn't have the full range of creativity and like understanding that actual humans do. Apple just came out with a bunch of new Apple Intelligence functionalities, which just means my camera's better. I can edit my emails more easily with AI directly on my phone. Those are very AI-enabled features, but they're not like, oh my God, it's like a human, it's a robot, it'll do everything for me now.
Yeah. So that actually might be where the AI technology is useful to the consumer, but it's not, because it's useful and not the new sexy, it'll write everything for you, it'll make a new thing for you. It's making your pictures look a bit nicer, like we've been developing in different ways for years.
Yeah.
We forget. On that theme of not understanding perhaps what the product is, do you think that could it be complacency? Could it be ignorance at large that puts the consumer maybe at some risk?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a level of educating the consumer. And I think that's the job of a lot of regulators now, helping protect the consumer from these risks. The data and privacy issue, like all of your data is going somewhere when you're asking AI to help you do things, or it might be going somewhere. It might be private to you still, but it's not super clear.
Sure.
And I think that's something that consumers probably should be worried about.
Yeah.
At least I'm worried about it. There's that, but there's also, I think, acknowledging the things that are useful and trying to, I guess, repackage it in a way that, like, here's what's useful about it. Here's maybe some risk associated with it. You have to make that judgment call for yourself, in the same way that we've done with like social media and the internet for years now.
Is it a comms issue, do you think, more than a product?
I think honestly at this point, it's even that the experts don't know what they think about it. I have to spend a lot of time on like tech Twitter to sort of keep an eye on what's happening, like what's new in the AI market, I guess. And the number of Twitter fights that like genuine, PhD experts will have over like, is AI going to kill us all? Is this a privacy issue? Is this good for artists? Like, is it actually a new tool in their arsenal, or is it stealing from artists? These are not questions that have been answered even by experts, much less so by like your average consumer.
Key feature of a lot of development, but especially with AI, has been the open source nature of how it's developed, how it's shared, and the feature set keeps being expanded. Do you see that changing in the near future?
It's really interesting because a lot of baseline tech and like the theory behind neural networks, generative AI, whatever you might call it, is open source. It's like academic research, right? That's come out. To build these LLMs specifically, it takes so much resource that it's kind of hard for open source. What university has the same resources as a Meta or a Google or an Amazon, right? So it's been kind of a fight. There's also like such a discussion now about what open source actually means, especially for these models. A lot of open source models will say that they are open source because they've released all their model weights online. And so you can download it, use it yourself.
Publishing your model weights would mean that you could try and replicate it yourself if you had the
So you
time?
wouldn't be able to replicate it necessarily. It would be more like I've downloaded, say, Llama, Meta's big, open, quote unquote, open source models. If I downloaded it, I could ask it the same question and get, the same level of quality as if I was doing it online through their platform.
You can have it for yourself,
Yeah.
but it's not open source in the way that you could reverse engineer it.
Exactly, yeah.
That doesn't sound so open source.
Yeah, so that's like a big debate now of like, can we even still really call it open source? Because like the proper definition of open source is that you can recreate it, you can like reverse engineer, find where, how it was built.
Presumably there's complicated licensing and you sign terms and conditions.
And then now there's like, is it open source or is it open weight? And is that the new terminology we should be using with these? There are a few like models and model sort of data sets that have come out of a few academic and like research organizations that are quote unquote properly open source because you can take their entire training corpus and just like retrain the same LLM supposedly yourself. There's a real spectrum.
Yeah, they don't have the power of Google or Meta behind them. Are there the big names, so OpenAI, Google, Meta, whoever else is doing it, are they in agreement on this sort of type of issue? Or are they going in different directions? They're going in different directions.
It's, again, back on the Twitter fight. So Meta's head of AI gets in a lot of Twitter fights about the value of open source. I think there's a big topic at the end of last year. It's kind of died down now, but we'll see where it goes. Is open sourcing AI or even releasing open weights a safe thing to do?
Okay.
Because that means that anyone could access it for any reason.
Right.
You could have terrorists using it to create biochemical weapons.
It's similar old arguments about science papers.
Such a big fear, and the government and a bunch of companies came together to talk about it, to be like, oh, how should we be regulating it? And should we be putting sort of guardrails around it? But, at the same time, you want to let innovation continue.
Yeah. Do you think that hesitancy to treat it like everything else, where you go, the world's got it now, is that because of that public angle sort of fear of AI because you don't understand it? Or do you think it's sort of a genuine, this is different from the last wave of
same issues that have always existed with any new technology?
Yeah.
I think maybe there's like a new source of fear in that it feels more human and maybe ultimately like less predictable, less controllable. A big thing we've been talking to developers about about why this feels different is that it's such a shift in how you have to think about the technology. Before, if you're writing code, it's deterministic. You know what happens every single time.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't quite get it and it goes wrong,
Yeah.
but you know, like, what you've written is what will happen.
Sure.
Whereas this one, it's probability based. It's all like super advanced statistics or whatever.
Okay.
And so you can't exactly predict it every time. And I think that's very frightening.
So let's do a fun little pros and cons list. You give a con, I'll go, and then you give a pro.
Sure.
Biggest con.
Hard to rate in terms of size, but I guess like most current where the data is coming from to train these models. I'm sure everyone watching will have heard lots about, a lot of news publishers and various artists suing the AI model creators. If there's a New York Times article that's actually been used to train OpenAI, is that fair use? Is that actually using copyright content in a way that's like it wasn't allowed to be?
Yeah.
That I think is a big concern of like, how do we regulate what's allowed to be used in training AI and what's not, and like how do we retain sort of artists, copyrights around their art.
Okay, let's go pro.
Other side of that same coin is that it sort of democratizes a lot of, not just art, but just like tools in general. Again, we've been speaking to a lot of developers, but we also speak to people who maybe are like starting out in like coding and like learning how to do it. And having things like ChatGPT, like Gemini available makes it way easier. You get to just like ask a question, like it'll give you an answer. I use it to mess around with my own
use
code.
it at uni all the time
to
help my work that I'd already written. That's a lovely pro.
Yeah, it's super useful. I use it like all the time. You need to like write an Excel formula. Simple things like that, it's massively helpful. Just sets people up. And also like, I'm not an artist, but I would love to think that I could make art. If I'm designing something stupid for my friends, like I want to create an Evite for a party that I'm hosting, instead of having to like try and find the right sort of clip art photo or whatever. I can just like ask DALL-E or Midjourney, is like, can you generate me, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
it might be.
It does it, and it gives you 4 that are completely inappropriate, but one of them will work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. Let's do one more con and one more pro. Con.
Cons. There's maybe worry also that it's like a Xerox of a Xerox. If you flood the internet full of AI generated content, that's lower quality than human generated content. And new AIs learn off of that AI generated
feedback loop of AI.
Like crap. A screenshot of a screenshot, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And also limits sort of new human creativity or like new thought. I read an article by some journalist who said, I use ChatGPT a lot to help me write. If it's a thing I use to get me started on a story, then I don't really think about it. Like, if I'm just editing what it gives me already, I'm not actually producing new thoughts.
Like that kernel that starts off, especially in journalism where it's important that it's true.
Yeah.
It could just be complete hallucinations and...
Yeah. Or even if it's not a hallucination, just that sort of lack of, I've really thought about this. I thought about what my opinion, like my actual opinion is, as opposed to just editing the opinion of sort of AI, which is sort of aggregated everyone else's opinion. Like, how do you get new thoughts?
It's only going to be a reflection of all the work that's been put into it, which brings along the biases, the ignorance, the interests of the humans. And so you as generative as it might be, it's more of a mirror.
Yeah. Another like big concern within generative AI, but also like AI, any sort of like crunching data that's existed for a while, is how do you prevent existing human biases? Like, that's already sort of baked into the data from being reflected in how you use AI. So I think there's some research about using AI to determine like prison sentences and the fact that it would take into account things like social economic class and race and things like that, because we've given it that data.
We'd be asking it to operate within the human system, which is flawed in all the ways that humans are. Yeah. Okay, let's do the pro. Lighten it up.
I think it's just like a really exciting area, right? It's not new, but it is new. It's new to a lot of sort of non-AI and ML experts especially. And I think there's still like a whole universe of things, of use cases that we've not thought of yet. It's exciting to see where it'll go, just solely in the fact that it's something new that we can explore.
Moving on from AI and work or project-specific stuff, let's go into your professional attitudes and life and your advice. So if I wasn't me and I was you, but 10 years ago, what are you telling me?
Just to stay curious about everything. I like to think I still stay curious about everything, but I think 10 years ago, I was very set on what I thought I was interested in. I just love maths and I love science and I don't care about, I don't know, history and languages, but actually like finding out now that those are still really interesting. And yeah, just keeping that sort of open mind of like, you always want to keep learning, even if it's an area you think is not that interesting, actually turns out the more you learn about something, the more interesting it becomes.
Last question. If you were to be stranded with only one tech item, what would that tech item be? And that is all you get. Don't worry about charging.
I was going to say a speaker, but it has to also already have the music in it.
Fair enough,
so like a boom box with I just need music at all times whenever I'm doing anything.
Final question. What is your content watching media guilty pleasure?
This is a plug for everyone who likes comedy, specifically improv comedy. The main streaming platform that I use at the moment is called Dropout. It's by the same people who did like College Humor back in the day.
Oh, right.
It's turned into Dropout. And they just have like a bunch of amazing shows where it's just a bunch of improv comedians like doing stuff. So they have like game shows, and they also have a extremely nerdy actual play D&D show, like loads of series of it. And I'm obsessed. They're so good. They're so much fun. I laugh my head off every time. And they're just like chill content, you know? I don't have to think too hard about it. It's just people doing goofs.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And there's nothing to be guilty about for that.
Thank you. I'm actually not that guilty about it.
Normal response. I think that's all we have time for now. Thank you so much for coming and sharing
Thank you for having me.
The wisdom.